What's going on, guys? This is Skyhound, also known as Geek Archivist Xavier Pierce. So as we know, we are approaching the anniversary of the passing of the actor known as Jason David Frank, aka Dr. Tommy Oliver. I know that his passing was definitely difficult for many of us, as well as the actors and actresses who got the opportunity to, work with him. It's not just the Mighty Morphin team, but also you can also add Dino Thunder as well as Ninja Storm because of the season that he was in. With that being said, I wanted to actually go over at least my top 5 episodes that I actually enjoyed. And I'm pretty sure some of us have similar lists. But with that being said, let's go over it, shall we? So at number 5, I'm gonna go with the episode Back in Black, which is the follow-up to episode 4 of Power Rangers Dino Thunder, where we get to learn a bit that Dr. Tommy Oliver actually is caught by Mesogog, and Mesogog is trying to prompt him to unlock whatever is surrounding the stone and the power within it. With that being said, I am going to be doing at least just a few clips, but I'll be giving a quick summary on it. So bear with me for a few minutes.
This is your final chance, Dr. Oliver. Free the gem from its resting place, or feel the wrath of my disappointment. Do I have to pick one? Your attempt at levity is as feeble as your attempt at self-sacrifice. If you won't do it for yourself, perhaps you will for your precious students. Like obedient dogs, I speak, and they come. I can save you some trouble. Good guys always win. I suppose that all depends on who you believe the good guys to be.
Now, while I won't play the entire episode, I'm just doing certain parts that actually, stood out to me in my mind. I got to say kudos to the scriptwriters who was working on this episode, as well as the actors themselves. Now, those two particular parts stand out to me the most, mainly because of the fact that we see the thought process in terms of Mesogog, how he is calculating, clever, as well as ruthless, one would add. Now, Jason David Frank playing Dr. Tommy Oliver, what I like about the exchange in this one is the fact that despite Tommy's attempts at trying to be, a few steps ahead, Mesogog proves that he can be just as capable in terms of, one would say, knowing what your opponent is thinking and then trying to use it against them. So we see here it's kind of almost like a tug of war in a sense, mentally speaking. But Mesogog being the calculating, clever scientist, mad scientist, if you will, that he is, has been able to prove that he is able to at least use his own skills against the Rangers. What I like about this one in particular is the fact that we see that Tommy knows that he can only go so far in terms of like being able to outwit his opponent. But Mesogog is able to see right through that. So when Dr. Oliver does get, the ability of becoming a ranger again, obviously we get the iconic exchange between, Elsa, Zeltrax, and him. Once he gets the powers back, he points out to them, there's two things you guys got to learn about Dino Gems. One, you don't choose them. They choose you. And Elsa obviously replies, and what's the other? They go real well with Dinomorphers. And so once he combines the gem's power with the Morpher, Elsa's like, aren't you a little old for this, Tommy? To which we get probably one of the coolest retorts right back. I may be old, but I can still pull it off. Now, while this would be ranked roughly at my lowest, there are a few other episodes that I actually like. If you haven't noticed, I know that I've actually gone over at least some episodes in terms of Mighty Morphin and Dino Thunder. In one of my previous videos regarding a tribute that I've done on his birthday, I've actually gone over in terms of, behind the scenes and all that. One particular episode where I discussed details with the stuntman, Eric Betts. Now, given the fact that some of these actors have, remembered at least what they've done in terms of, making them look good and all that, because that's what stuntmen do, I did go over a bit about the very first episode where Tommy does get introduced. I will put a link in the description down below in terms of that tribute video if you want to take a look. I know it's a bit longer, and I do go over at least, behind the scenes aspects like, who is who and all of that. But with that being said, most of us likely know these episodes like the back of our hand, whether it is iconic lines or summarizing the episode in, I'd say, less than 10 minutes, which I could do if I wanted. But you have to also add in context in terms of, what the writers were working on, what the actors recall from the episode, and all of that. But given the fact that fans likely recall certain bits better than actors, and, they were only there for a year? Don't expect them to remember at least everything. But be at least courteous enough to realize that their knowledge of what went on doesn't invalidate, their work in terms of contributing to it, if that makes any sense. Now, coming in at number 4, if I had to choose one, I would have to say, this is going to be a difficult one, but if I had to choose, I'd probably go with a particular Zeo episode. And that particular episode, okay, I don't know why I said episode. I should have been plural here. Episodes. Plural. If I had to choose one that was actually pretty good, it would be A King for a Day Part 1 and Part 2. Now with those episodes, we actually do get the we see the characters of Prince. Give me a moment, I'm trying to recall it. It's been a while. Okay, so I had to do a little bit of digging on my end. It was actually Prince Gasket and Princess Arturina. So the Cogs actually captured Tommy, and then he got brainwashed via brain drain. And there's something about this one that really catches my attention, and it had to do with the fact that We also get to see, one would say, the acting range of the late Robert Axelrod. May he rest in peace. And I still remember the time when I actually got to meet the guy, because some of us know that some of these voice actors have played multiple roles, and I'm talking about hundreds of voices. And I know I'm not the only one that knows this, but obviously I did ask Mr. Axelrod, between Finster and Lord Zed, which one did he prefer playing the most? And he told me it was actually Finster. So that was back in 2009 when I met the guy. So we actually get to see him do both roles in this two-parter for Zeo. Now, in summary, we do know that when Tommy does get brainwashed by Prince Gasket, the Rangers are trying their hardest to try and find Tommy, but with no success. On top of that, we also get the fact that Bulk and Skull, played by Paul Schreier and Jason Narvey, do recount a time when they encountered Zeo Ranger 5. But in their attempt at trying to get to find Tommy, we find out that the actual help comes not from, Billy, but their enemies. And the fact is that Finster brings up the obvious question of what would be considered a total nightmare for Prince Gasket and Princess Archerina. He said, and he's basically, I'm just going to kind of paraphrase here a little bit, line for line. Finster asks the others, what could be more terrifying than one Power Ranger? And then Goldar is trying to go, oh, I know the answer to this question. And of course, Rita, tells him to keep his mouth shut. He's like, be quiet, nobody asked you. And then, Zed is asking Finster, what is more terrifying than one Power Ranger? 5 Power Rangers. I think that Prince Gasket would be so hard-pressed to have that many Rangers outside of his backyard. And Finster does make a good point with this, because the others know, Rita and Zed, that they had a rough time with the Rangers. They always kept winning and they drove them nuts. And Finster's pointing out here, why not, do the same with them? But the interesting thing is that when Zed realizes that Finster does have a point, and he's trying his hardest not to say the word help because it is so annoying, but when he does, he's telling Rita, is like, we must help the Power Rangers, in a really annoyed tone. And then Rita kind of faints when she realizes, you gotta be kidding me. But if you really think about it, they realize if they don't help out and then the Machine Empire wins, they're as good as gone. Pretty much. But when the Rangers do get teleported over and they do confront Tommy, obviously, he's completely bought into the lies that Prince Gasket brings up, that the Rangers are evil and all that. It is until Catherine demorphs that eventually Tommy slowly starts to come back to his senses. But the additional help that the Rangers get comes from the fact that Bulk and Skull also get caught by Cogs, and they eventually get some help as well. So when they do help out, we find out that eventually Bulk and Skull, they do have to fight some cogs in a funny manner. But eventually, the force field that prevents the Rangers from teleporting does get destroyed. And so when Tommy does break free from the brainwashing, eventually they do escape. That's roughly the summary of the two-parter from Zeo. Okay, so as you noticed, I went with a two-parter for at least 4 and 3 because one would say it's just one entire episode. You could put it that way, but there's so many to choose from that it's almost difficult for me to decide. But in this case, I am trying to go at least with what I enjoyed as a Ranger fan. Now, if I had to make my pick for number 2, I would probably go with... As much as I want to go with at least something from the White Ranger side, unfortunately I can't. So I'll be honest here. The one that I would go with for number 2 would have to be from Mighty Morphin, particularly when it comes to Green with Evil. In this case, I would have to go with episode 4, Eclipsing with Megazord. Why? That episode I had probably watched maybe, 30, roughly 40 times. Plus, that was actually the first VHS tape I used to own back in the day. Now, what I like about it is the fact that, we get to see Tommy really, going at it. And I probably remember the exchanges really well, but I'm just going to go, roughly line for line here to the best of my ability. It's right when Tommy does get inside the command center. And Zordon is telling Alpha, look out, there's someone behind you. But Tommy temporarily disables him. He doesn't destroy him, he temporarily disables him. And when Alpha is trying to get Zordon back and is struggling with it, I'm going to have to go line for line here. I apologize in advance. This is just my improv attempt at it. Oh, what's the matter, you little misfit? Can't you make anything work? Let me out and I'll do the same for you. And of course we have that iconic laugh. To which Alpha replies, "You are truly evil, Green Ranger. It's time to find out who you are behind that mask." And just when Alpha is about to, make his attempt, Rita is watching the battle unfold between Goldar and the Rangers. She goes, "Excellent, time to call on Green Ranger." And then Goldar replies, "Use your spells to release him." And it is right at that point where Tommy goes, "Better luck next time, Tinhead." And he escapes. So obviously, Tommy does, join the fight, and the Rangers are overwhelmed because of the eclipse, which depowers the Megazord and destroys it. But obviously, we find out that who is really the Green Ranger. And Alpha points out to them that while the Green Ranger was caught in the force field, it was picking up on, I forget the exact lines here, but while he was caught, the computer was trying to analyze who this character was. Eventually, the Rangers find out that it is actually Tommy, the transfer student that they had met in episode 1. Okay, so for the very last pick, my number one pick, this is a little bit tricky for me, but I would be lying if I said I wouldn't have put number one for my pick on Tommy Oliver episodes, the Forever Red Wild Force event episode. Most would have likely put this as their number one pick, depending on who you ask, but I do recall discussing this roughly with at least 5 Ranger actors. So the first one that I remember going over this with is Christopher Kamen Lee, aka Andros. The one after that was also Jason Font, Time Force Red. I only briefly touched upon it with him because I was asking a question. The third one that I remember going over this episode with is Jack Guzman, who played Danny Delgado, Wild Force Iron Bison Ranger. The fourth one I remember discussing about this with was Catherine Sutherland. And then the last one was Walter E. Jones, who played J-Rock, and that was only a voiceover. Now, I want to be clear here, before I go over the quick summary on this. Catherine Sutherland, Walter E. Jones, as well as a few other Rangers, they did a little bit of voice acting on this. Most fans bring up, some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. So, I'm going to go over this one really fast. Apologies if I do, but it's pretty quick in terms of, what people remember. So, Andros is on the moon and he comes across the Machine Empire trying to unearth Zed's Zord Serpentera. And he finds out that they're more than maybe 60-70% of the way through with excavation. The generals of the Machine Empire, of course, we have the suits from Big Bad Beetleborgs. Those of you guys who remember that one know what I am going on about. Andros finds out that he's been found and he goes to escape. And then somebody makes a phone call. Of course, Bulk and Skull give the phone over to Tommy. And it's pretty obvious to know what's going on here. So, when the Wild Force Rangers finally get a call from another Ranger, Carter Grayson, Lightspeed Rescue, he points out that the only one who is needed for this is Cole, Wild Force Red Ranger. So he learns about, what's going on. He comes across Wes and Eric when he's brought over to Nasada. And then he gets introduced to other Rangers. TJ being the second Turbo Ranger. Then he comes across Andros, the In-Space Ranger. They eventually, give Cole the 411 in terms of what's going on, that they were all brought around by a veteran Red Ranger, to which, of course, where Tommy comes in. Of course, Cole doesn't know him, so TJ kind of explains a few things about it. Tommy gives the other Red Rangers what's going on about, the Machine Empire. Andros gives the other bit in terms of the generals that actually survived. And TJ points out, but I thought the Zeo Rangers destroyed the Machine Empire. And Tommy points out, yes, we destroyed their leaders, but some have survived. And that they're trying to find, Serpentera. Of course, I'm jumping a bit ahead here because when the briefing is being done on the Astro Megaship, Cole asks, what were they trying to find? Jason points out that it's Serpentera. And there is obviously, how to put this, some pretty good fights in this, particularly when they're over on the hidden base, as well as on the moon. Now, I do want to point out here that in terms of lines and scripts, we already know what goes on here in terms of the episode, but I did inquire with Jason Font, which of the team-ups did he prefer. I asked him about Forever Red versus the team-up with the Wild Force team, and he actually preferred the one with the Wild Force team versus Forever Red, and he gave me his explanation for that. Now, in terms of lines, I did inquire with him, were most of your lines, ad-libbed, which ones were, which ones were not, because I asked him about the whole roasting moment towards the end of the episode. And he said most of it was, from the script. Now, when it's when I came across Christopher Kamen Lee at Robotoy Festival, that's the name of the convention I went to, because he was there, as well as Dwayne Cameron. For those who know the actor, the guy played 3 roles. He was in Dino Thunder as a soccer jock bully. He was in SPD as a friend of Sky Tate, SPD Blue Ranger. And he was also in Operation Overdrive as Taizan. So, when I was discussing about this crossover event episode with Christopher Kamen Lee, he told me that out of every other Red Ranger, his was the only one that was altered post-production, roughly speaking. Now, if you look at the notes for the episode on Amazon Prime or Amazon Video, they do list out some of the stuff in terms of behind the scenes. Now, I do want to point out here that I respectfully disagree, and I'm pretty sure most would as well, with the one who wrote the episode, named Amit Balmik. I apologize if I mess up on the last name, but if you guys want any proof, here's my proof. So as you can see here, this was the script that I bought from Christopher Kamen Lee when I met him at Robotoy Festival. So, quick summary of my encounter with him. I did let him know that I had a little something for him. I did a fan art attempt because he was doing Bloodline of the Grid. That is his personal project. And I did one with a crossing of the, you could say, Spiral Sabers. But we know that his character is, opposite. And his had black and red on it versus the one his character originally once had. Now, when we were discussing about this episode, Forever Red, he explained to me that his was different because, let me go straight towards the end here. Here. Very last page, you can see here, you see the episode number, and then it's right here. So most of this is the same. Now, there's some parts, you can see here are similar, other parts are not. So, this part right here, where Eric says, my Q-Rex could beat his Dragon Zord any day. Most of us know that it was more like improvised. I don't know how they put that in there, but I'm going to say it anyway. Yeah, but my Q-Rex would eat his Dragon Zord for lunch. That's what we recall here. And then I mentioned before here, there's the part where West said, hey, I changed history, so why does he have a fan club and I don't? That part right there was in reference to the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers fan club. And then here's the part where Andros says, "That's nothing. I was the one who destroyed Zordon." That obviously got changed to, "Hey, I saved 2 worlds. What do you think about that?" And fans know what happened in the 2-parter episode Countdown to Destruction. Then obviously we have the last part where, TJ brings up the pizza thing. And then everyone's like, "Yeah, we remember." Now, obviously you could tell that I got my script signed by Andros as well as Zach/Jerok, because Walter pointed out to me when we met that he only did voice acting. Unfortunately, there is one thing that I did miss, and that was when Catherine Sutherland was around, because I had the script with me and I'm thinking to myself, "Dude, did you realize you forgot something?" And I'm like, idiot! I missed the opportunity of asking her to get that script signed. So I'm like, how could you miss that? So yeah, that would be my list of top 5 episodes, at least for me, regarding Tommy Oliver, in tribute to Jason David Frank. Now, if some of you guys realize that I did a poem tribute to Jason David Frank, I know I've cited it once, and then I did it again on, a tribute video to his birthday, going over some commentary on some of my favorite episodes. So many to choose from, but I felt like doing it once again. If you guys haven't figured it out, I already posted the poem online. You can take a look if you want, but again, just for the sake of it, I wouldn't mind reading the poem once more. Side note, before I actually do start reading this, I did have to put a watermark on mine because, copyright and everything else, because I don't trust people when it comes to being respectful to other people's work and giving credit where credit is due. Because there are plenty of idiots that are always disrespectful regardless of whatever fandom it is. With that being said, again, the name of the poem is called Beyond the Morpher. A spark of light has been put out of the world. To many of us, he was a hero and an icon. To others, he was a friend, colleague, and a co-star. Jason David Frank had many facets beyond his initial character on television. He was a father, a husband, a role model, a fighter, and a teacher. For many fans, including myself, he went beyond the morpher. He took the time to listen to various stories of fans around the world, how he changed their lives both on and off screen. He took the time to bond, to listen, to inspire, and to lift up others, young and old alike. But through all of that, there was a facade that many of us couldn't see: the struggles of mental illness. That invisible mask that one wears, but it keeps threatening to slip off. An unheard cry for help. The circumstances aren't always known to many. So when I received word about his passing and the manner and how it was done, I was shocked, sad, confused, and upset. Another legend gone too soon. His poetry, while thought-provoking and well put together, gave a tiny look into what was going on. A raging battle inside that few understand. He inspired me and told many to try and reach out, lend an open ear, and work hard. Thank you for the memories, Mr. Frank. Although our time to talk was brief, it was memorable to me. From one poet to another. Rest easy, Dr. Oliver. Once a ranger, always a ranger. Of course, there's that hashtag, Forever Dragon Ranger. That was said by Shiro Izumi, who played Burai in the Super Sentai counterpart, Zyuranger. Now, for those of you guys who are wondering, yes, I did get the opportunity to speak with Jason David Frank back when he was still around. It was in 2020. Sorry, not 2020. I misspoke here. 2021, New Year's Day, and it was on the Legend of the White Dragon account. He was doing a live stream with, other fans who support the project. Obviously, I was one of those. I do have the link to the video, and I also remember when I actually treated myself to a cameo roughly on my birthday, but it came in roughly a week after. That was back in the early 2020s. But it was one that I couldn't pass up at all. Now, with regards to the live stream that he did, I recall that I had the selfie that he did with me digitally signed, which I am forever going to treasure. And I do recall that I tried to at least listen to some of the poems he did, and he knows that I was a bit of a creative soul myself, like he was. And, we could tell that he did this, for the fans. So, hope you guys enjoyed, my list in terms of choices for Power Rangers regarding Tommy Oliver. Hope you guys enjoyed the poem. If you like this content, hit the like and subscribe button for more. Thank you again, like I said, Mr. Frank. As most said, gone but never forgotten. Stay safe, stay sane, and as a good friend of mine once said, stay humble. Peace.